Okay, so I just got back from seeing Saw X. Um, that was a movie. Okay, what can I say about this one? So I want to talk about the movie itself. It's completely spoiler free. Um, I don't want to go into spoilers until after I give my rating. So if you don't care about spoilers, stick after my rating. Um, we'll go from there. So Saw X is actually a prequel, or technically a midquel. I thought it was a complete prequel of the whole thing. Apparently, that's not the case. Um, so Saw X is the 10th, hence the X, uh, Saw film. And this was something. So basically, the gist of this movie is John Kramer is back. The big draw to this film was the original Jigsaw Killer's back. Amanda Young's back. It's great seeing them again. It really is. So John Kramer is struggling with cancer, of course. Um, and he's at this point very desperate. He has no hope left in him. Well, now he's told about uh, these people in Mexico that can help him. Essentially, they can treat him, and now suddenly he can live a long and healthy life. The problem is that's not the case. So essentially, he does this. They take his money, and they essentially scam him into thinking that he's cured, that he's better, and he that's not the case. So essentially, he wants to get back at them in the only way he knows how, which is setting traps for them. So the problem with I have with this movie is they essentially rewrite the characters, John Kramer and Amanda Young. They rewrite those characters completely. They're actually good people in this movie. I had a big issue with that, considering this actually takes place between Saw 1 and Saw 2. I didn't know that, but after knowing that, it makes it that much more unrealistic, in my opinion, to have these guys just happen to be these two are just they just happen to be good guys all of a sudden, and the victims are actually like the worst people imaginable. Later on in the movie, it gets even worse for the victims. Two in particular who just you've come to find out they're the worst people. So what what positives can I really give about this movie? I can say, like I said, it's nice to see John Kramer back, especially Tobin Bell. He's great. It's great to hear the voice again. I love that. Um, it does kind of ride off of the hype of nostalgia, like a lot of films do these days. Um, I don't know. It's just the problem is this movie is very slow. It wasn't until 50 minutes in, maybe 50 to 55 minutes into the film, almost an hour into the film, when we started getting any sort of jigsaw-esque traps. So that's kind of a big issue for me. Uh, because it just felt very slow. It felt like this one felt more or less like a revenge tale rather than an actual Saw movie. It really didn't feel like Saw to me. As someone who owns all the movies, has seen all the movies, Spiral was more of a Saw film than Saw X. Um, and it's kind of a shame because I was hearing good things about this movie. I heard that that I was hearing people come out of the theater and being like, "Oh my god, this was so good." It was a bit of a letdown in my opinion. Um, the thing is, I mean, it's far from the worst movie. It's far from the worst one, but it's far from the best too. It's very middle of the road for me. It felt like they didn't really. It almost felt like they didn't want John Kramer and Amanda Young to be the bad guys. They didn't want us to root for bad guys, so we had to make them as likable as possible, as relatable as possible. But that's just not the case. If you watch all the Saw films, and thankfully I didn't just watch all, all 9 Saw films before this because I planned on doing that. I'm kind of glad I didn't, because it really would have bothered me that much more. It was already. I was actually kind of looking forward to this, and unfortunately, it disappointed me to the point where I was kind of bored. Now, as far as the traps go, it is very violent. It was actually kind of there were parts. I mean, it does feel like that sort of torture porn kind of thing. So it does have Saw-esque scenarios. It just doesn't feel like a Saw movie. It doesn't feel like a proper Saw movie. So I don't know what they were trying to do with this, but clearly they wanted to make the horror villains, the iconic horror villain Jigsaw, to be a good guy. The more I think about it, the less I can really speak positively about it, which is very unfortunate. So, I do want to say, as a Saw movie, it is very mid. As well, okay, I'm sorry. So as a horror movie, F, complete F. As a Saw movie, F. It doesn't feel like Saw. It's not really a horror movie. It's just more or less like, hey, these 4 or 5 guys in a room. Yeah, we're going to watch them torture themselves to death. That's really what the movie comes down to. And it was a big issue for me. There were things that it just didn't feel right. It didn't feel right to me, but it is what it is. So as far as a ranking, or I'm sorry, as far as a rating goes, I don't know. I'd probably give it a 4 out of 10. It was very disappointing. To be honest, I don't even know. It's like I said, it's not the worst Saw film. It's nowhere near the best. So, with that being said, if you want to stick around, I can definitely talk more in depth about about things that I really hated about this movie. So if you don't want to be spoiled, if you're actually looking forward to this movie, I hope you enjoy it. I really do. Personally, I didn't. So without further ado, this is the part where I'm going to start talking spoilers. So if you don't want to be spoiled for the movie, click off now, and I'll catch you in the next one. All right. So as far as spoilers go, yes. Jigsaw, John Kramer, he was scammed into this. He actually seeks help from other Jigsaw killers from the past. He actually reaches out to Detective Hoffman, which, by the way, I actually looked it up, and he, like the original actor that played Hoffman, actually lends his voice. There's a vocal cameo. So I thought that was pretty cool. They actually got the same guy to just voice a line or two of dialogue. So I thought that was pretty cool. But yeah, he gets into contact with Detective Hoffman. He kind of tracks down these guys, and he has Amanda Young essentially, help him kidnap these people and put them in his little game. The problem is, with this film, it doesn't actually feel like a game. It feels like they're just being tortured just because, right? It didn't feel like they were going through any real trials. It was more or less like, hey, do this or you're gonna die. Whereas, the first three Saw films were perfect examples where I think if you look back at all the Saw films, as a matter of fact, they don't. It's not like they're doing anything. It feels like they have to work out these puzzles. Hence the name Jigsaw. They have to do these puzzles and try to figure out how to survive. If they want to survive so badly, they have to do this one thing. They have to go through all these things, and they have to do tasks that are going to hurt them, and they're going to, essentially appreciate life. The thing is, they make John Kramer a sympathetic person. He's almost a good guy in this movie. Him and Amanda Young. Amanda, of all people, who literally made the games in Saw 3 unwinnable just so people could die. That's kind of an issue, because in this one, there's one her name was Gabriella or something. There was one girl in particular. She was kind of young. She didn't really have too much involvement other than just letting John inside the facility for them to operate on him. So that's really all her involvement, but she was still involved at the end of the day. And she tried everything in her power to protect her, essentially. Kind of protect her, where it was like she didn't want her getting hurt. She didn't want her to die. Now I said, and I probably shouldn't have said this in the non-spoiler section, but I did say that the victims felt more like villains than the actual villains. That's very true in this, particularly towards the end, when it's just the main the one behind it all. She's kind of the face of this company that she apparently has that can actually cure people of cancer. It turns out that, and the thing is, this movie is predictable. I have to say, this movie was predictable, because I even said to Dan, I said to him, if they're probably going to do some shit where they're going to be like, oh, they know he's Jigsaw. Like, somehow they're going to know that he's Jigsaw, and that's why they kind of singled him out. And lo and behold, by the end of the movie, you find out, oh yeah, we know that you're Jigsaw. And so essentially it's down to Gabriella and this main chick. I can't remember her name, but essentially Gabriella had to break her foot and her hand to break loose, while she's kind of strung up by her left. She's strung up by her left arm by a shackle, and then her right leg in the other shackle, and she has to break her right leg and she has to break her left arm in order to get free. All the while, there's this like heater thing that gets hotter and hotter and starts burning her skin. So she breaks free of that, and she can't move, she can't walk, her face is all burnt up, she's not doing well at all. And lo and behold, this girl, this last victim, the main victim, she ends up having her boyfriend or husband or whoever essentially infiltrate and pretend to be like a victim of their scam. And it turns out they were in on it together, which again was another thing I saw coming a mile away. Considering there was a cell phone in the middle of the room, and she used the first victim's intestines after she died. She cut out the intestines, had the other two help to pull this cart that had a cell phone in the middle of the room, or on the cart in the middle of the room, and she kind of used her intestines to pull it towards her, and she made a phone call and Amanda stopped her, whatever. So, and then moments later, this dude just happens to show up banging on the door, like, hey, I know you guys are in there. Well, he's got a gun, whatever. And, long story short, they're in it together. But so Gabriella, she's on the ground, she's barely hanging on, and she just ends up like stomping the life out of her, essentially. She just like presses her foot on her neck and kills her, essentially. And basically, and conveniently, there was this little boy that John actually helped fix his bike earlier on in the movie, and they had a pretty good relationship. It was pretty nice, and learned a little bit of Spanish from this kid, and helped him with his bike. I had a really nice moment, which is weird considering this takes place after Saw 1, where he literally made one dude, cut his foot off to get free, and the other dude had to just die alone in an empty, dark bathroom. So it's really weird to me, all because he took photos of Dr. Gordon, by the way. But yeah, we're supposed to think this is a wholesome guy at the end of the day, right? But anyway, we're just supposed to forget he's a psychopath. So this little boy that he spent a little bit of time with happens to just be kicking a soccer ball, or I'm sorry for those overseas, a football. Just kicking it against the door to the warehouse that they're in, just out of nowhere, just happens to be there. And just, having a great old time. And they essentially bring him in and force John and this kid to be on this trap together, where they have their necks caught in like this little neck brace or whatever, and the chain pulls back, and so they're both laying there, and they each have a lever where if one has to pull back in order to like go back, and like they're being or I don't know, I can't remember which way they have to pull it, but the other person will be waterboarded, but it's with blood. And of course, the stupidest line in the entire movie was when the main villain, or the main victim, she said the stupidest line where she was like, "Oh, not waterboarding, bloodboarding." I hated that line. I absolutely hated that. It made no fucking sense. So essentially, that was a thing that happened, and so basically, they're both going back and forth at it, and finally, John had enough of this kid getting suffering, because he was begging. They were both essentially begging. Amanda and John were begging to spare this kid's life, which was pathetic. It was absolutely pathetic. Oh, and when Gabriella died, Amanda cried. She was absolutely distraught over that. I don't know why. She has no connection with this girl. It made no sense to me. It felt forced. It was awful. Anyway, I couldn't get around the fact that these were essentially good guys. So anyway, he finally had enough, and he just allowed all the blood to just be pouring on his face, and the kid tried to pull the lever so he could take some of it, but he just kept holding the lever there so he could take all of it, whatever. And essentially, to be honest, after just seeing this movie, I can't remember how it went down, but essentially, yes. So they just decided to go up and get the money, because I guess they had money there, and I guess John and Amanda had money stashed away from them. I guess he took it back. I can't remember, but essentially that turned out to be a big trap. Amanda got them freed or whatever, and they pull the money bag, and here's like a timer right behind it, which starts as soon as they take the money bag, and it locks them in this room where this gas is just pouring in, and it's burning their skin. It's making it hard to breathe. They're burning their skin, whatever. And of course, those two have to fight it out. Of course, she kills her husband, boyfriend, whatever. She kills him, and basically, one of them has to die in order to live. So essentially, there's like this little hole in the door or a wall or something that only one person can stick their head in and breathe until the timer runs out or something like that. And so they have to fight it out. She kills him, of course, and essentially she's left to live. And because he's such an honorable guy, he plays by the rules. He wanted Gabriella to live and whatever. So she ends up killing him. She gets to live. And the final shot of the movie, the absolute final shot of the movie, is John, Amanda, and this little boy just walking off into the sunset together. Just, they have their arms around the boy, just happy-go-lucky. Yeah, John's still going to die in 3 months, even though this takes place a couple weeks after Saw 1, and Saw 2 takes place a year after Saw 1. I don't know. They just wanted this Lionsgate just wanted another Saw movie. They can't stop with these Saw movies. Yeah, I honestly don't know what else to say about this movie. It was absolutely ridiculous. There's not much to talk about this movie. Also, there's one fucker that actually told him about these people. He even told him, like, oh yeah, I actually they actually cured me. And he lifts up his shirt. He has this big old scar down his torso, essentially, just awful looking. He's like, they helped me and I get to live. But for whatever reason, he must have forgot about that guy. I mean, he had to have been in on it if he's telling him, like, hey, they worked on me. It just blows my mind. Yeah, I can't believe they tried to make these characters good guys. It felt a lot like Don't Breathe 2, where the villain, I mean, he's a villain because he kidnapped a girl and had her in his basement while she was bearing his child, because she essentially killed his daughter in a car accident because she was drunk or something like that. So it's not like he was necessarily a bad guy, but he wasn't a good guy. He was a bad guy. He was a bad guy, but he wasn't. He was just hurting. Still a terrible thing to do. Still a terrible person. Yeah, I just couldn't get behind the second movie when he's just an action hero now. When we already know what he did, and it's almost, well, if not, it is irredeemable. Same thing here. We're if we were to watch these movies chronologically, Saw, then Saw X, then Saw 2, completely different characters. It's the most out of place Saw movie. And I honestly, if you are a diehard Saw fan, I don't think you'll enjoy it. If you're like me, I don't think you'll enjoy it. I can't even say I'm a diehard Saw fan. I like the movies. I think they're entertaining as hell to watch. But this one is far from a Saw movie. And I didn't think that was possible after Spiral. But apparently Spiral is more of a Saw movie than Saw X. Which is very disappointing. I don't know what to say about this movie. Other than I'm just disappointed. So there you go. That's my review. If you liked what I had to say, I urge you to hit the like button, subscribe to my channel. I want to do more videos. I've been doing a lot of live streams lately. I want to try and grow this channel, see where it goes. We do streams every Sunday at 4 o'clock. And yeah, if you made it this far in the video, I will thank you for watching, and I'll catch you in the next one. Bye for now.